Hey everyone, welcome to our living room. I'm excited to be bringing you guys some updates about the healing home, what's happening with it, the project itself, and everything else that's been taking place ever since the summer when I went on my hiatus initially. And the reason I went on the hiatus, most of you guys might know, but Mario and I tied the knot in September, and ever since then, everything has been feeling so freaking solid and awesome. And I'm finally at a spot now where I feel like things have settled, decisions have been made, and we're feeling great as a married couple. And it's been a wonderful journey, to this point, and really excited to bring you guys some updates today about the future of the healing home, where I'm at, where we're at, and what it's going to look like in the future. So, moving forward towards the wedding, I kind of got into a headspace of realizing how much time the wedding was going to be taking up. And so I wanted to be able to take a break from this project so I could really just focus on the wedding and planning it, because we did a DIY style wedding. So we basically, with the help of friends and family, brought together this lovely event. And I had a realization one night as I was in the planning stages, was like, whoa, this is a big endeavor. And if we're going to take it on and we're going to make it what we want it to be, this should be my main focus. So I put the healing home kind of on the back burner a little bit and planned the wedding. And now we're on the other side of that. So what is the future of the healing home? Well, I've come to the conclusion that I am no longer going to be having the podcast. It was something that was awesome while it was here. I was having a great time doing it up until a certain point, and I really am grateful for the opportunities that came from it and came with it, because we decided to do the podcast kind of as a business move, really, to kind of try and figure out how can we get Healing Home and Michelle's Healing Home out to more people. And the podcast seemed like a really great way to do that. And it really was. I'll say, in hindsight, it was probably one of the best decisions we made as a team for my project, because it allowed me a platform to interview people that I've always wanted to talk to, friends of mine, people I looked up to, people who I wanted to get to know, and then also kind of opened up a platform for people to listen to some of the subjects that I really love talking about and get down to the bottom of certain subjects that I really love. And what better way to do it than talk with people who are steeped in it themselves. And so for me, it's been a really great opportunity, and just want to thank everybody that's ever listened, ever tuned in, ever came onto the show, ever was willing to allow me to have some time with them, because I've learned so freaking much in the process of the show, and it really challenged me in a lot of ways. It allowed me to do shadow work in ways that I did not expect it to, as life typically goes. And anytime you start a project, particularly something like a podcast, what I've learned is consistency is key. And that was one of the things that I feel like I achieved with Healing Home. And that's why one of the reasons why it was hard for me to really decide if I should take a hiatus was feeling like I might lose all that momentum. But in the back of my mind and in my heart, there was something that was feeling unsettled with the project entirely. And leading up to the decision to make a hiatus, I was having thoughts about what is going to be the future of this? Why am I really doing this? And was it really in my heart to be having a podcast the way I was podcasting? And I think ultimately the answer was kind of a no. And that was one of the reasons why the hiatus came. It wasn't just for the wedding. It was also for me to legitimately take time to reevaluate my focus, the healing home, Michelle's healing home in general. And with that, I mean, it was a hard decision. It really was. And it took me about a month to finally really decide, between Mario and I, having many conversations about it, and then coming to the realization that, I think one of the reasons why I didn't want to stop the podcast was for egoic reasons. And when I realized that, that was when I really knew that it was time for me to take a break. And it was the healthiest thing and the best thing I could have done. Now, with that being said, someone might be wondering, well, are you still going to be making products? Are you going to still be offering things? I am still going to be making products. I am always going to be making things. I am an herbalist. I am an alchemist. I am a homemaker. And I'm a person that loves to work with the elements and the plants, as many of you know who've been following me. So I will be forever a maker. That's for damn sure. What my online store is going to look like in the future, I'm not 100% sure for. Right now, my plan is going to be continuing to make products for us, because that's what I've been doing for many years, friends, family, and our local community. That's what it's going to be right now. So anyone out there who has been a customer and has purchased things in the past, thank you. Thank you so much. And, reach out to me and either email me or send me a message through my website. And we can figure something out if it's, if it works out in my plan to be able to do something for you on that level, we can see. But as of right now, I'm going to be just keeping it pretty small, as I always have. So, what does that look like then for me outside of what I already do on a daily? And one of the things that Mario and I definitely talked about was me coming into the fold with him on Symbolic Studies. And that is what we're going to be doing. That is what we've been doing now since probably mid-September, I would say, end of September. Once the wedding was wrapped up, I kind of just have been his research assistant. I've been a bit of his bookkeeper. I've been a bit of a muse as well, helping him brainstorm new ideas for Symbolic Studies, taking some of the workload off of his back so that he can grow Symbolic Studies and we can grow Symbolic Studies and fan its flames, because I feel like that's what it really needs. And one of the conclusions we came to was, we both have our own separate project, which has been beautiful. And one of the things about being in a partnership or even having a friendship that's strong is realizing and appreciating and respecting each individual's independence. And that everybody has to, and in a healthy way, should have their own interests in things that they do. And so we, for years, were trying to basically run our own separate businesses. And Mario helped a lot with the Healing Home. As many of you who watch know, he was in charge of all the graphics, all of the thumbnails. He helped me so much with production and that side of things, which was another reason why we decided to kind of take a step back, because what was happening is it was kind of taking away from his ability to focus even a little bit of his extra time on Symbolic Studies and also his design business, because as many people know, he's a graphic designer, and that is the other business that we run together. He is the designer, but I also help him with elements of that. And so we kind of came to the conclusion of, instead of having 3 separate projects, and one of them being the Healing Home, that's kind of lacking, or felt like it wasn't quite getting to the place that we wanted it to. Why not kind of consolidate and now really, really put our emphasis and our focus on Symbolic Studies and the design business? And really, honestly, it feels so good to have gotten to this point, as hard of a decision as it was for me. To kind of admit that, it just was like, wow. It was kind of a no-brainer once it happened, once it sunk in. And now it feels like, seriously, so amazing. And I've been able to see the stress relief in Mario, just the extra things that I've been able to do to help him. It's like really great. And I can see that he feels calmer. He feels more solid with everything. And just that alone has been a really huge gift to see just the little things that I've been able to do, how much time that frees up for him for other things. And so one of our goals right now is to have the consistency that I had with the Healing Home, with consistently putting out shows every week. We want to bring that to Symbolic Studies, and we're going to do it. And I know we're going to do it, and it's going to be freaking awesome. So just want to say to everybody out there, anyone who's been a supporter through Patreon for the Healing Home, really appreciate you, as always, since the beginning, but there's been a lot of you that stuck around through the hiatus, and man, I can't begin to tell you how much that means to both of us. And I just want to encourage people that if you're wanting to still support what Mario and I do, and you were on the Healing Home Patreon, you can head on over to Symbolic Studies Patreon, or Mario also has a membership through his website at symbolicstudies.com. And he's been releasing these episodes on the major arcana. He's calling it Symbolic Secrets. Some of you may have heard of it or even watched it already, but he is going through each card of the major arcana, and he's been releasing these series. They're about an hour long, and he does a slideshow, but it's all exclusive content to his Patreons and people who are members through symbolicstudies.com. He actually just released the Chariot episode, and he is currently working on the Strength card. So he is going in deep places with it. It's a deep well of knowledge that he's pulling out of all the wonderful symbolic things that he knows, things that people usually don't really dive into. He's diving into them, and it's really exciting over there on his Patreon. So that's the plan for us right now. And I wanted to just come face to face with you guys and talk about it, because it has been a little while. And I did mention that I was coming back in the autumn. And I've also find that this is all really appropriate with Scorpio season. And it is the season of change. It's the season of deep wells. It's the season of sex and passion. It's the season I feel as though introspection, but mostly change. And that's what comes to mind when I think of Scorpio, because when I think of autumn, I think of the very tangible, very viewable change that's happening all around in nature. With the changing of the leaves are dropping, the plants in the garden are drooping to the ground, the roots are becoming strong with all that energy that was in the aerial part. It is all coming down into the ground, into that grounded space where you can really be quiet and be still and take the time to have that introspective thought. That's so important, but can be challenging to do, right? And that, I guess, to me has been one of the biggest lessons of this decision, was just the challenge of sometimes letting go and accepting that it's time to change. And that, for me, has been beautiful, and it's been painful and sad at some times, but ultimately it feels really freeing for me right now. And I gotta say, when I first began Michelle's Healing Home, it was back in 2018, 2019. And my main goal with the project was to teach people and teach classes. And I was doing that because before I began Michelle's Healing Home, I had another small business, which was called Sea Goat Herbs. And that was solely focused on products. So I was making salves and tinctures and deodorant and elderberry syrup. And I was at farmers markets. I was in a handful of shops as like a wholesale account. Something with that didn't feel right to me either, because what I never wanted was to just be somebody who sells products on like the retail front. But that's what I found myself in. And it's all great and fine for other people, but for me, it never felt like that was where my heart was. So when I began Michelle's Healing Home and I put Sea Goat Herbs to rest, that's what I wanted to step away from, was just making products to turn around and sell or to be in a shop or something like that. I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to do it on the scale that I know is required in order to make a decent living. That's the other thing, especially when you are doing things like I like to do, which is on a small batch basis. It's not impossible to do that. And I give shout out and props to the people that do, because it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of product and space and manpower and supplies in order to do that kind of business. And it's great, if that's what you want to do, but it's not what I ever wanted. And one of the things I found myself back in the cycle of was that exact same thing. And it was probably since last October is when I felt that kick in again, because we started the online shop. And then I realized that I was stepping back into the role that I tried to avoid. And that was one of the biggest realizations that came to me with this whole decision was, holy shit, here's a pattern. Here's a pattern that I had found myself in since 2017. Okay, well, it's time to acknowledge this pattern finally, and finally address the issue of the pattern. And it was that. It was me trying to fill those shoes again. And I really didn't feel good about that. But it felt like at the time I should do it because, well, that was a way to sell more product. It was a way to try and get the business to a place where it's profitable, actually. And, but my heart wasn't in it. And then I started to feel that way even with the podcast I began to get to the point where I felt like I was just reaching out to people to make content. And I know that that's the game, and I get it. And I understand that, but it didn't feel right in my heart because I don't know, man, it almost didn't feel like if I'm just reaching out to this person to literally make content, like what is that an equal exchange even? Or is that like a respectful exchange? So I started to have those sorts of questions and those sorts of feelings. And so when I started having that, I really was taking pause. And that was even like 2 or 3 months before I decided to go on a hiatus. So this had kind of been bubbling up for me. And I knew that there was going to need to be a decision that was going to be made. And then with the wedding planning, it just felt like, okay, you need to finally address these feelings you're having and be honest with yourself and do that. And once I did it, I felt much better. And I got to say too, one of the things Mario said to me and has said before, and he says it with the utmost respect and love, is that getting me on the internet and getting me aligned with all of this stuff is kind of like trying to get a cavewoman on the internet. And to me, it's so flippin' true that it makes me laugh because I get an image in my mind of a cavewoman at a computer, like pounding on the keys and stuff. I'm a little more civilized than that, but it's never been my forte. Internet, computery sort of side of things, social media, it's never felt very comfortable for me. And it's never felt like a place that I want to be very often. And I know that you have to be uncomfortable in order to do things. Sometimes you have to be really uncomfortable to do something freaking beautiful, right? So I looked at taking the podcast on and even choosing to have more of a public format for myself as a challenge. And I knew that I needed to do it, and it was shadow work, and it's great. And it put me into a brand new position that I really had never been in before in terms of like putting myself out there like that. And, one of the things too that I want to, make sure I say is that I understand that it was my choice entirely to take on the podcast, to have more of a public role and all that stuff. And so by no means am I like saying, oh, it's just the internet and that's why I'm not doing it. I'm not comfortable there. Bah. I don't want to sound like I'm blaming that or something, but it's definitely part of the equation. And I will say that as soon as I made the decision, oh my God, like my stress and anxiety that I sometimes would feel, like it went down so much. And then not being on social media as often. And yes, I still go on and I still check things, but not having that hanging over my head that you got to get a post out, you got to get your thumbnail out, you got to go to the library and upload, you got to do all this stuff. it doesn't feel like me. And so I feel like I was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole a lot of the times. And that's great and fine. And sometimes we have to do that, for a certain amount of time to get to a certain place. But, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like there was an integrity with it then, because I felt that way, if that makes sense. And so, with all that said, just to be putting it all out there, that's kind of why we've really decided this. And for me, I want to be able to, the time that I do spend on the internet, or the time that I might be on screen or something, I'd much rather be helping Mario doing that. Or, we have plans for Symbolic Studies of wanting to perhaps have a small show that we co-host together, maybe once a month or something on Symbolic Studies. And that's something I'm more than happy to do, more than happy to be helping him behind the scenes with things. And I feel like that's where I'm most comfortable, perhaps, and I've always been more of, I am a very social person, but I'm more of a tangibly social person. I'm more of a tangibly comfortable host, and I love to host people, and I love to make them food and treats and teas and coffees and host them in a space. And that's something that I didn't feel like I was able to really get online. And I want to, in the future, be able to have the ability to host events in person. And that's one of the things that the wedding actually showed me, planning our wedding. Well, I was like, man, dude, I love organizing. I love organizing in general. I loved organizing the wedding. I loved organizing the event, and I loved having it on paper and planning it and seeing it, and then seeing it come to fruition. And I know that we, in our future, will host some kind of event. We've talked about it for years, before either of these projects were even a thing. We've always talked about wanting to have some kind of gathering, a conference, something that's in person, where you can have people gather and have an experience and really just host them proper. And so that's something else that I just wanted to bring to the table too, of just my dynamic and where I'm at and how I function. And people who know me, and good friends of mine whom I talked to about all of this stuff, a couple of them even said, yeah, well, I can see why you've come to this conclusion. And I've wondered the whole time how you were going to fare with it, because I know that you're not quite that person, that online person. And so there are people in my life that, really were very supportive and still are, and always will be with that stuff. Good friends of mine who were able to be very honest with me too. Once I started talking about this decision, that they are, they could see why I came to that conclusion. So for all of you out there who have supported us, have watched the show, have tuned in, have made comments, have been on anything, again, great thanks. And I hope that this resonates with you in a way of perhaps you could maybe see that about me or something, although I wouldn't expect that at all by any means. But I'm just trying to kind of give you guys a little bit of a glimpse of why I came to this conclusion, why Mario and I as a unit have come to the conclusion, and really feel like it is the way to go. And it feels great, and it feels awesome. So again, if you guys want to go and head over to his Patreon, feel free and do that. By no means do you have to either, but he is over there, Patreon, under Symbolic Studies. You can do that, or head to his website and become a member, or just continue hanging out and watching the content that comes out, because we have a lot of plans for Symbolic Studies of moving forward, just sharing more content, sharing more videos, collaborating on videos as well, which is going to be super fun, which we've kind of dabbled in, through the Healing Home. Obviously, Mario has been a guest on my show. We've had interviews, we've done videos together, but we want to even collaborate on research and making videos together. So that'll be really fun too. And with all that said, I I kind of think that I was able to get it out there for you guys, let you guys know what's been happening and where I've been at and where we're going to be. So, all of my YouTube will remain up and all of that stuff. So there's plenty of information out there besides the podcast. I have other videos on the YouTube of, showing the garden or showing people how to make deodorants and salves and things like that. And I also, one of the other realizations I want to say that I had was, and it was kind of one of those things where it was like a little bit of a light bulb or an epiphany moment that I had while all this was going on. And it was like, dude, you're only 40 years old. So by no means is like this the end. And I'm going to be 41 in January. And so when I realized that, or I basically remembered that like, you have plenty of time to create and do the things that you really want to do, which is like write a book, create courses, have in-person classes, have in-person seminars or gatherings. There's so much time to be able to do that and formulate what I really, really, really want to do. And I have so many interests and so many things that I do on the physical plane that I know that, with this time right now, being able to just focus on symbolic studies and help Mario, that's the time. This is the time right now. And the times where he's sacrificed his extra time to help me with my project, it's my turn to do the same for him. And it feels really good to be able to do that and to be able to just know that that's the role right now. And it feels pretty freaking great. So that's also been part of my decision of just knowing that, there's time, and I know that life, everyone will say, well, life is short, so do it now and this and that, where I get that and I understand that and I respect that view. But I also know that there's every timing is everything, and there's a divine time for all things. And this is all the things we discussed today. It's the time for that. So I hope that brings you guys some clarity on what's happening over here at the Healing Home. And I hope you guys are doing well as we move into the winter, which is exciting. I mean, it's my favorite, one of my favorite seasons. Autumn is my favorite of all time, but winter is up there because I love all the things about winter. I like cold weather. I like snow. I like being quiet. I also like being loud though too, but you know what I mean. I like the quietness that comes with winter, the introspection and the time to just kind of chill a little bit, because right now I'm looking out the window and seeing the garden and, I've been cutting things back slowly, and there's still flowers out there. The tobacco is still in bloom. It's looking beautiful, but it's also the time where everything starts to slow down a little bit, especially outside in the garden and just in the forest and all of those things. And so that's one of the reasons why I love winter and autumn, is because it's time to just like watch that. Stop and reflect, stop and see the plant that's coming back down to the ground. And it's been really nice to be able to do that. So with all that, I thank you all so very much for all the support and all the encouragement and all the things that you guys have brought to the table. We'll see you on the other side. We'll see you over in Symbolic Studies. Take care out there, and we will talk to you soon. Cheers.